James Clancy, good morning.
Good morning.
So what did you think when you heard of the incident in Thunder Bay?
Disappointed. That was a horrific incident that took place in Thunder Bay. But at the same time, we've been talking about and warning of this crisis for the last 4 or 5 years as it's developed. The workers, you went to hostage there, but in Ontario, if we look at Thunder Bay, Ottawa, London, Greater Toronto, Greater Hamilton, Milton, incidents like that, which took place in Thunder Bay, are happening right across the province.
Right across the province?
Yeah, what we've got is a prison population today, which is so markedly different than what we looked at 20 years ago. If you want a snapshot of what's happening in our communities, one just has to spend some time looking at the population in any one of our provincial jails. And what you've got are jails that are overcrowded. We've got a mental health crisis. 1 in 5 inmates need mental health treatment. We've got drug addiction, inmates with drug addiction, much greater than what we witnessed 20 years ago, and we've got gang violence. So you put that together, that the change in the prison population itself, coupled with the fact that the federal tough-on-crime laws over the last 8 to 10 years have resulted in a huge increase in the number of inmates that are there on remand, overcrowding, double bunking. You've got all the ingredients for the event that took place in Thunder Bay. So we're extremely concerned. We're calling on both the federal and provincial government to recognize that it is a crisis that places inmates at risk, takes a terrible toll on the women and men that are charged with overseeing our prison populations, and makes the communities less safer.
I'm having a difficult time hearing you. I'm not sure if we've got a bad line or not. But let's talk about the issue that prompted you to write this, like the crisis in correctional services, PTSD, the mental health of the workers. What concerns you most right now?
Well, we've seen a tremendous increase in the violence against workers by inmates. In Ontario, if we look at Ontario, from in 2010, there were 321 incidents reported. That is where a correctional officer is assaulted by an inmate. In 2013, that ballooned to 855 assaults. So there's a trend. This trend just continues year after year. Greater assaults on correctional officers by inmates as a result of overcrowding and the lack of tools they have to get the job done. That is the correctional officers. And so what is happening, we've got correctional officers that are increasingly suffering from PTSD. So, both from the inmate standpoint, this is cruel and unusual punishment. If you've got an 18-year-old son, who's picked up for some minor crime and ends up in jail, or who is 18 and needs mental health care, the jail has become the warehouse because there aren't the tools in the community to provide those supports. So from an inmate population, I would describe it as cruel and yet unusual punishment. And at the same time, from the officer's standpoint, they're being placed in danger every day when they go into work. They run the risk of being assaulted. Or, in the most horrific cases, we've got the hostage-taking in Thunder Bay. I mean, this is absolutely a crisis, and it needs to be addressed.
So what specific recommendations have you made then?
Well, we've talked about a series of recommendations, but I think if we want to speak specifically about Ontario, we need more full-time staff. The ministry talks about hiring 300 people over the last number of years, but they won't acknowledge the fact that we've got 800 that have left, people that have left the service, and we're bringing in part-time workers who don't have the experience, don't have the training, casual workers, as opposed to full-time staff. So we need more full-time trained officers working in our jails in Ontario. The ministry at the same time has got to listen to frontline staff, because repeatedly over the last 5, 6, 7 years, frontline staff have gone to the ministry. These are the people that are working on the front lines, and they have suggestions and ideas to make the jails safer, and these are falling on deaf ears. And the third thing is that we have to fix the physical plants. We've got jails like that in Thunder Bay that are ancient and old and were built for a different time, and they're not designed to handle the inmate population that we have today. And they're overcrowded. I mean, you're running jails that were built for a capacity of, let's say, 100, and they've got 200 inmates in them. And we can go across the province to city after city where we have jails, and we've got jails that are carrying too many inmates for what they were designed for.
Now,
so this is a perfect recipe, a perfect storm, as it were, for violence. Violence inmate against inmate, and violence inmate against the correctional officers.
When you say that trying to hire 300 and yet 800 walked out the door, is it difficult to get people to work? I mean, are these jobs nobody wants?
Well, these are increasingly jobs that absolutely no one wants, because your life expectancy, we've got studies that show that the life expectancy of an officer that works in a jail is much lower than people that work in other occupations. But increasingly, you face the prospect of violence when you go to work each day. So this is not something that's attracting people to work in the service.
The mental health supports that are available for people who work in the jails, should there become a problem with, say, for example, something like PTSD, is it there?
No, there aren't the supports. First of all, the ministry repeatedly wants to deny or ignore the claims of those that are suffering from PTSD. But there aren't the supports for those that are suffering mental illness as a result of the violence at work. They're simply not in place.
James Clancy, thank you for outlining this for us this morning.
Well, thanks for your interest in what I view as a major crisis facing not only Ontarians but citizens across the country.